Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. When we think about designing our future and what that looks like, one of the aspects that we should concern ourselves with is how do we create an economy that provides an equal and just opportunity for everybody to contribute, thrive, and grow. Nowadays, we know that about 1/3 of our population and the businesses owned and run by them aren't being able to access the full potential of the economy. I am talking about people of color, immigrants, and refugees, particularly those of African, Hispanic, and Native American descent. As a matter of fact, research all over the United States shows that businesses owned and operated by these minority communities consistently secure less business, employ fewer people, and have a shorter lifespan than their white-owned and operated counterparts. Now, while we could discuss for weeks as to how and why this happens, we know that we are missing out on the full potential for innovation and contribution that these minority communities have to offer. In an effort to create a more equitable economy, some of the largest institutions who anchor our communities have begun to take action. The Anchor Institution movement partners with some of the largest institutions in our communities who are rooted or anchored in place, like hospitals, government, and universities. In fact, many of them happen to be some of the largest employers and purchasers of goods and services in their communities. They have begun to leverage their economic footprint to create prosperity in minority communities by altering their practices around how they buy, how they hire, how they invest, and how they advocate. But the model I want to leave with you all today focuses on a different group of institutions, one that is oftentimes overlooked by the larger anchor movement. I'm talking about houses of worship, charter schools, retirement and nursing homes, colleges, and other large nonprofits that manage their own building space and, by nature of their mission, aren't about to pack their bags and leave. Now, individually, they might not look like much, but together they have proven that they're key pillars in their communities as employers, as purchasers, and as being active participants in the everyday lives of the people that they wish to serve. Our model, by the Community Purchasing Alliance, hopes to bring together many of these institutions so that they can collaborate, share market insights, and purchase together. As a purchasing collective, they seek to secure better and fair deals for themselves for the goods and services that they need to run their operations every day. But you might ask me, why fair? Well, the reason why this model exists to begin with is because the challenges that these administrators of these institutions face, they are very real and they're very clear. You see, property owning and managing costs are a natural and necessary part of being institutions like they are. But we oftentimes find that their administrators and their trustees are often facing complex decisions amongst difficult industries, misleading sales practices, and burdensome contracts put into place by large national providers that have made it a point of squashing their regional or even local competition. As a group, we know that they want to help their communities thrive, and oftentimes their administrators don't always have the time or the capacity to review multiple contracts, vet different vendors, or receive multiple bid awards for the goods and services that they need to operate. As a result, they end up paying way too much for the goods and services that keep their buildings up and running, in the detriment of their people and programs that they're looking to forward. Oftentimes, these are low-income community members themselves. Because they want to help their communities thrive, they have also found a way to free up the resources that they need to further their mission and, at the same time, create economic prosperities for those very same communities. They do so by contracting the goods and services that they need from local minority-owned businesses. And through this, they have shown that they have the potential to create net hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs in their local communities. This model by the Community Purchasing Alliance last year alone facilitated over $17 million of goods and services across 120 anchor institutions all over the Washington, D.C. areas in everyday categories like electricity, office supplies, services like landscaping, air conditioning, janitorial, and even security services. $8 million of those dollars went to local minority-owned firms. So, how does a model like this work? Well, the first part is that it is anchored on trust. You see, we build trust with a highly relational, high value add approach, which puts us in proximity not only with the administrators of these institutions, but also some of their most important purchasing decisions. This then allows for collaboration amongst them, where they can meet their peers from different institutions who naturally don't collaborate together. They learn to collaborate, to enter new group contracts, or join some of the ones that we've already established, providing options that they simply would not have on their own. This is very important because it so happens that the capacities of small and local minority-owned businesses fit squarely within the needs of regional anchor institutions of this kind. In fact, many of the contracts that we facilitate tend to be in the $100,000 to $200,000 range. So you'll figure that most businesses who have some level of business-to-business experience will find that they are very competitive for a lot of the contracts that we try and facilitate. Now, while they may not win very many in the beginning, a series of opportunities strung together over time will coalesce into a real stepping stone that these businesses can use to achieve manageable, realistic, organic business growth. Let me give you an example. We recently facilitated a group purchasing process across several anchor institutions around janitorial services. This contract was worth a collective of $2 million, but thanks to the group work that we did along with the anchor institutions, we were able to break this contract down into 10 different bid awards, providing multiple minority-owned businesses that would only ever have dreamed of a chance to work with these institutions, a chance to secure a relationship, build revenue, and propel them to new heights. This then further creates a catalyst effect where synergy and trust is created and cemented further along in the community. So when we think about what makes a model like this successful and effective, we think about 4 factors that build up on each other. The very first one is trust. Trust because as a small team working with hundreds of anchor institutions trying to facilitate millions of dollars, the only way that something like this can be achieved effectively and sustainably is by intentionally developing relationships with each of them, understanding their personal pain points, and most importantly, future practitioners take note, delivering value where and when we said we would. This creates relationships that open the space for new collaboration amongst institutions that are naturally isolated when it comes to purchasing. But now, you might ask me, gee, this sounds like a lot of work to get a lot of these smaller institutions to work together. Why not focus on some of the larger ones that have the largest potential for impact? Well, anyone who has worked at or in collaboration with large anchor institutions will tell you that and rightfully so, that there are a lot of barriers and challenges to getting these large anchor institutions to funnel more of their business towards minority-owned firms. For one, there is this fundamental mismatch that exists between the way that these large anchors do their procurement and the ability of small, local, minority-owned businesses to successfully plug into their supply chain. Let me be specific. The way procurement works at many of these large organizations so happens to have evolved away from having individual departments or divisions manage their own procurement budgets and operations. Nowadays, these operations have become centralized in procurement departments that increasingly aggregate higher and higher spend amounts. Furthermore, many of these anchor institutions now procure through group purchasing organizations which seek to aggregate volume across many large anchors in an effort to further drive down unit cost. So we realize that the scope of work, of quantity of good and services needed just becomes so large that it becomes practically impossible for many local or even regional firms to compete. As a matter of fact, only a handful of companies around the United States are set up to take on business of that scale. And knowing this, they have redirected their market positioning towards this precise segment in an effort to take advantage of their scale and wall off additional competition from other potential customers. Because we work with smaller anchor institutions like churches and charter schools, not a single one of them has the potential to fundamentally remake the economics of their neighborhood. But together, they have realized that by aligning on their mission, they're able to spread around the purchasing that they do, creating a transformational effect, not just for them, but for many local companies that would dream of a chance to work with them. This transformation has created an evolution in many of the institutions that we've had the privilege of working with. The fact is, many of them have begun to see how it is a central part of their human mission to do more business with local minority-owned firms. They can plainly see how every dollar that they spend with these businesses helps create a tangible effect on the health and wealth of the communities they aim to serve. And the human impacts of this work are very real. For example, we see an example of a security services firm locally that went from 3 employees to over 105 in the span of a few years. We recently worked with a church that was having a crumbling roof and that was able to repair it and replace it for the first time in its 108 years of existence. And they were able to retrofit it with solar panels that provided the energy and electricity that could help pay for this work and provide energy for it and other similar establishments. Every time anchor institutions have gone out of their way to do this work as a priority, the results have been transformational. We have seen that the potential of many small anchors banding together are able to create a more impactful, nimble initiative than any large anchor on its own. What I am proposing to you all is that we, as citizens, constituents, users, and customers of these anchor institutions help create awareness and urge them and support them in doing better in this regard. This also helps set the pace for these larger anchors who are just now beginning to grasp at the idea that the lives of their communities can be improved so much more when they are intentional about who they purchase with and the jobs that are created as a result. Thank you.